but they can see themselves in the background. Oh, you're live.
We're
Okay.
live.
All right. Any second now, it should be live.
Yep, we're right. Well, good day, folks. Sorry for the delay. We've had a lot of technical issues. I think everybody in Australia is on the internet at the moment. My name's Mick. I'm the owner and winemaker and general dog's body at Jester Hill. It's my lovely wife, Anne, and just beside me here that you can't see is my very pregnant daughter, Shannon. I hope she doesn't give birth tonight because she is due. A little bit of history about Jester Hill and us. Jester Hill, the first grapes were planted as rootstock in 1993 and grafted over about 2 years later, 1995, all except for Roussanne, which was planted in 2010. We're the second owners. We bought the place in 2010. My wife and I, we have 7 kids, and we decided to get away from the kids one weekend, and we both rode motorbikes. So we came up here running motorbikes, and impulse buying, we bought a winery. We just came up to taste a few wines, but we ended up buying 50,000 bottles instead of 2 or 3. So
and sort of still smiling.
yeah, it was a steep learning curve. First 2 years I employed a winemaker, Steve Oliver, and I learned from him, and then from 2012, 2013 onwards, I made all the wine myself. So I'll be a bit quicker because we're half an hour or more late, so we'll cut this a little bit shorter. The first wine we're going to talk about is she's already poured it. They say good help's hard to find. This is our 2017 Roussanne. Roussanne's originally from the Rhone Valley. They call it the red wine drinkers white wine, and as such, you should really drink Roussanne at around about 12 degrees. Don't have it really cold because it just locks up. Roussanne's very new in Australia. It's only been here for 15 years. There was, I think, 4 cuttings taken from the Rhone Valley, and every vine in Australia is related because they all came from the one lot of buds. So when I was first planted, it was very needy. It took a lot of fertiliser, a lot of water, and I almost pulled it out. So I was just fed up with how long it was taking to mature. This is our second vintage. The first vintage was 16. When I was making it in 16, I almost threw it out because it really stinks during ferment at certain times. I read an article from a fella in the Napa Valley in California, and he came across the same problem. He said, don't give up on it because you think it's going rotten, but it's actually not. They say if you don't like it, give it a week and it'll be different. So during the ferment process and the secondary ferment process, this one's gone through full malo. So this was fermented on Hungarian oak, not in barrels, but in Hungarian oak planks that I sourced from AP Johns Coopers. Hungarian oak is spicier than French oak and doesn't taste as woody. So it was only on oak for about 6 weeks, and then through malolactic fermentation. So that gives it that extra creaminess. I don't add anything at all to it as far as acid or anything like that. I like it to express itself how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a full-bodied, creamy mouthfeel wine, and this one certainly is. So sort of goldy yellow colour. The oak is still fairly prominent on the nose. Roussanne is a wine that can, they say, drink it within the first 3 or 4 years or wait 10 years. After 10 years, it's supposed to be phenomenal. I've only ever tasted a couple of 10-year-old Roussannes from France, and I have to say they were terrible. So I don't know. From my experience, it's beautiful now. I wouldn't wait. So the mouthfeel is quite creamy.
Just a reminder for all of you out there, don't forget to ask some questions. You've got all the background information about each wine on separate YouTube videos, so we'll keep things going for you fairly quickly. But yeah, throw those questions out there.
So it's a wine that goes with spicy foods and particularly white meats like pork or chicken. It is my favourite white wine, but then again, I'm a red wine drinker, so it stands to reason. It's a red wine drinker's white wine, so I particularly like it. So we might move on to the next one.
And I'll get
but I'm
to
not going to
enjoy
waste
it.
this.
I thought he was going to pass it to me. Where's this teamwork?
Oh, social distancing. Anne's actually in charge of the coronavirus ward at the local hospital. They have no patients. No. So moving right along to the Sangiovese Rosé. Sangiovese is a very difficult variety to grow up here on the granite belt. It's hard to get it to ripen. So the last two vintages, I've chickened out on trying to ripen it to make an oak table wine and made a rosé instead. Because you pick it earlier, it doesn't have to be as ripe. This is my second attempt at a Sangiovese rosé. Both have done quite well. They're only open on skins for about 20 hours, I think that one was. If you've got a bottle there in front of you, you will notice that it does have some tartrate crystals in it. That's because I don't cold stabilise rosés with CMC, which I normally do with white wines. Unfortunately, my chiller doesn't work well enough to get it down low enough to cold stabilise it just by temperature. So I usually use CMC, which can strip colour from rosé, so I don't use it for a white wine. Doesn't impact the flavour or anything else for the wine, so it's actually a good product. I don't use it for rosé. Hence, it has crystals in it. It's what they make cream of tartar from, so it's a totally harmless thing. It has a nice salmony colour to it. It goes particularly well with salmon. It's colour coordinated. The nose is strawberry, and it actually smells like it's going to be quite sweet, but it's not. It's dried right off. Very little residual sugar. This is a wine that you have to give 2 sips, because the first sip tastes like strawberry to me and to many other people. But the second sip tastes like cherry guava.
Someone's been very patient, and thank you for that comment. Lovely wine.
Which one was that? I can't read that.
That's the Rosana, I'm thinking.
Oh, right. Yeah, so that's probably enough on the Sangiovese Rosé. It is a wine that I would drink now. It's not a wine that I would put away for years. It's unoaked.
I'll keep that one.
Oh, right.
Here we go. Beautiful Petit Verdot. Look at that colour.
Petit Verdot was probably the opposite of Sangiovese to grow up here on the granite belt. Sangiovese, great big bunches, great big berries, really tight. Petit Verdot has very small bunches. It has extra bunches on each shoot. It has 3 or 4 bunches on each shoot. They're very small. The name means small berry. Petit Verdot means small berry. The French don't tend to make straight varietal Petit Verdots very often. They use it as a blending wine to beef up their other Bordeaux varieties. But in Australia, we're really catching on to Petit Verdot. It's now I think it's the 4th or 5th most planted red wine in Australia now. This particular one, I didn't filter or fine. It's just straight out of the barrel into the bottle. It has a lovely mouthfeel. It just coats the tongue This is
Which
just
you-
early on.
I'm still.
Yeah, it's Anne's favourite wine. And it's my favourite red as well. So it's really cherry, plum on the nose. The mouthfeel is what really gets me with this wine. Though. Being unfiltered, I think there's some suspended solids that still remain in there and don't settle out, but they just coat the tongue. There's totally unadulterated as far as acid or tannin goes. I don't believe in adding tannin at the crusher. I don't see that. There's especially no point with Petit Verdot. The colour is that good and it's so stable that it just doesn't need it. You will notice at the bottom of the bottle there's lots of crystals in it. 2 reasons: it's unfiltered, and it has got very cold at some stage after bottling. Here up in the Granite Belt we can get down to -10 degrees, and it's a bit like having your wine in the freezer. So any excess tartrates in solution will drop out, and hence you've got the wine crystals, the wine diamonds, or whatever you call them. Funnily enough, a lot of people think that's a sign of a really good wine if they throw crystals. I'd never really thought that. I just thought, oh yeah, that's just an old winemaker's tale. But of all my really, really good red wines have done that. So, and the not so good ones haven't. So, yeah, I think it's possibly a true story. I don't know.
There's a great comment from Thomas up there. Thank you so much. New first-time Petit Verdot drinker, so an order coming soon. That's even better.
I'm having difficulty reading the comments, so Anne's got better eyesight than me. So
No, I'm cheating. I'm standing up and getting closer.
Yeah, so Petit Verdot goes really well with strong flavoured red meats like lamb or venison, those sort of things, or anything gamey. Then again, I would have it on the cornflakes because I just love it. As you can see, the colour is really, really deep and rich. The nose is quite fruity. It smells like it would have a bit of residual, residual sugar, but it doesn't.
Another question here, Mick. Do you recommend decanting?
If you want to avoid having very gritty teeth at the end of it, yes, it's not 100% necessary. It's just that to avoid you getting that, especially if you've got a decanter with a filter in it, you'll get it every last drop. The crystals are that heavy in it that they don't sort of go into solution when you're pouring it. They're just there at the very bottom of the bottle. But if you want to get that last 10 mil out of the bottle, decant it for sure.
All righty. Let's move to our beautifully labelled, not yet, but labelled so you guys could have the very first tasting of this particular wine.
So this one is obviously a pre-release wine. It's a non-vintage Shiraz Roussanne. I originally was making it 8% Roussanne, a co-ferment, so all fermented in the one tank. And that's what you tend to do with Shiraz Viognier. It is a blend that they do in the Rhone Valley, in the same areas that they do Shiraz Viognier, apparently. I found that the 8% was just too over the top. What happens is you get a very smoky bacon flavour with either Shiraz Viognier or Shiraz Roussanne if you have too much Roussanne in it. So what I've done is I've back blended it with a 2018 Shiraz at 50-50. So it's now 4% Shiraz Roussanne, but it's 2 different vintages. So it's multi-vintage wine. Very unusual wine. It does have that little bit of that smoky flavour to it. It's not smoke taint. I actually had it tested and it's not smoke taint. It is just a characteristic of that blend. It was quite a difficult wine to make. Whether I'll make it again, I don't know. having said that, I'm very, very impressed with the way it's developed in such a short time. It's softening quite well. The nose was, when I first made it, the nose was a little bit too smoky, but it is softening quite well. The colour is beautiful. The nose is the smoky bacon nose is sort of disappearing. It's not as pronounced as it was. It's more, fruity, but also chocolate. That really strong cocoa chocolate. And it's pretty much the same on the palate as it is on the nose. Every time I try this wine, it's a little bit different. So it's probably a little bit young yet. Having said that, it's drinking nicely now, but I think within 3 or 4 years, it's going to be a real smasher.
The other thing is we're tasting these in a special varietal Riedel glass. So getting that really lovely increased surface area to really let those aromas and those flavours through.
There are actually better ones that are even fatter bellied that even work better for Shiraz. Question there.
Yeah, how long can you keep the wine open? How long can you keep it open before it's
A good investment is a little cylinder. Can you go and grab one?
Yeah.
Of like different brands called Wine Keeper. It's argon. We don't use them here because we have a big argon tank. If you every time you open it, if you spray a little bit of argon in it, I think they're about $25 a bottle or something. Anne's just grabbing one here.
There we go.
That's what they look like.
Turn around.
There's nothing on the back. Wine Save, this one's called. There's a few different brands. It's just argon. Argon's heavier than air, so it creates a blanket over the wine and it stops it oxidising. So as long as you're using that, you could probably get 2 weeks out of it after you open it. If you didn't have that, I would say 2 days. That's not just with that wine, it's with any wine really. You only get a couple of days out of it if you don't do something to reduce the oxygen exposure to the wine.
Brilliant tip. Okay, I think are there any questions?
Well, folks, if there's no more questions, I hope you enjoy your wine. And thank you very much to Adam from City Winery for setting this up for us. Again, apologies for the rotten internet connection tonight. It took us over half an hour just to get it.
And of course, the 2 Luddites that are here trying to actually get it working as well.
Yeah. I'm absolutely useless with computers. I'm the first to admit it. That's why we had to drag in our about to deliver a baby daughter to sort it out for us.
It might be.
Comment.
Thank you both. Thanks,
you.
guys, for your patience.
And enjoy your wines, and we hope to hear from you. Bye.
I don't know what to do except go and stream. Oh.
Got a few comments.
Oh, I can